We got any sports fans in the audience? March Madness going on? Well, welcome. So our next speakers are doing some really transformative things, and they're turning their customers into fans for life. I'd like to introduce to you Doug Kramon and Jenn Lien with ESPN and Patrick Negron with RXA OneMagnify.
Thank you all. We appreciate this and the opportunity. We're thrilled to be here. A lot of what I am going to say, well, not a lot, but Jason, you said so much in the introduction that we got very excited about this. So I led in the earlier session with the Maya Angelou quote, and I think that's really what this is all about. When we talk about how we work with our fans, and we call our customers fans, we want to make sure that every single opportunity we have with them is one that is an emotional connection. And it is based on that Maya Angelou quote, where we all agree, people, what they say and what they did, most people don't remember. They will remember how you made them feel. For example, I don't remember what my parents said to me when I was little, but I know I felt loved, right? I don't remember the conversations I had with my first girlfriend, but you know, I still remember that first kiss. That always stays with us, and that is emotion. And so what we are seeing is an opportunity to do what we do in a way, there we go, hold on one second, that relates to the fans, because sports are all about emotion, as we'll talk about. So real quick, we have been introduced. I'm Doug Kramon. I'm being joined by Jenn Lien. As you can see, I'm a Formula One sports fan, and I will say, I think we should all do everything we can to make Drive to Survive more exciting and have Josh James sponsor a Formula One car with Domo. It's just a thought. So with that, I'm big on that. Jenn, your background also as a huge sports fan, UFC.
Yes, thank you everyone. Thank you Domo for having us. Thank you Doug. My name is Jenn Lien. This is actually a photo of me back in 2021 at UFC 269. You know, what got me into the UFC and what kept me as a fan is the experience of attending a live event. It's the sound of the canvas upon a takedown, or the sound of Bubba O'Reilly at the start of the highlight reel, and that's when fans know the main card's about to start. And you know, these are feelings of joy, amusement, exhilaration. That's the emotional connection that UFC has built with me. And you know, whoops.
No, go ahead.
So as I'm here with you today, you know, it marks 5 years with being at the Walt Disney Company, being on Doug's team, and that's another emotional connection there. It's one of feeling acknowledged at the workplace, feeling motivated, feeling engaged to talk about and share with you projects that we work on, like the one we'll be talking about today. So Doug, let's talk more about emotional connections.
Yeah, and you were just talking about UFC, and as we see here, this is something that we're familiar with. Our leadership from when we started this project is talking to us, customer service, as trying to come up with a way to follow the emotion. Something that stands out in our world today, we deal with a lot of streaming. And I think for everyone here, you probably in the United States, in fact overseas for the matter, it's probably the same thing. Streaming is confusing, and it's only going to get more confusing. And we know it's the industry we work in. It's called streaming fog. And with that, what can we do with regards to technology to make it easier? Well, interestingly enough, we're probably doing the exact opposite. Bundles are making it hard for everyone to determine what is best for them for viewing. And if the technology, which isn't filled with any emotion, is a problem, what we need to do is really follow the emotion as our leadership is talking about in customer service. It's an incredible challenge that we're going to go through, but we started with this, and our leadership wanted us to start with UFC. And in this picture, we see, for example, our talent. And obviously, you look at this picture and it's all emotion. From Joe Rogan in the middle, something clearly amazing or crazy has happened. What happened in the octagon, Jenn?
Yes, so just as a caveat, this event was the first live UFC pay-per-view event in which a a crowd was able to attend. So this was in 2021. This was, in the middle of COVID, and fans were excited to be part of the action again. And this was a moment where something completely unexpected happened. It was if I remember correctly, it was a knockout via head kick. So everyone was floored, including the loser of the fight. But this is what it's all about. This is what Doug and I live for. It's capturing the emotions of the fans. And there's nothing more emotional, I think, in this country than sports.
Absolutely. So here's what we want to go over. First, how did we go from a customer service team, which actually, in my opinion, and I think for all of us, we worked very well, sticking to service level agreements, making sure that the agent was brief, bright, and gone, which was good, but not necessarily great. How did we move from a service program that thrived in that to a service program that really built an emotional connection with our fans, where we could each feel like we valued them, and then have this new connection create improved product engagement, improved customer satisfaction surveys, and improved product experientials. So what we're gonna go over today is our corporate marching orders. Why were we told to do what we need to do? And I kind of led with that with regards to streaming. Our leadership knows it's going to be confusing for the fan. There's more customer service at every touch point when a fan has an inquiry we can do to guide them. And it's all about that. 2, our challenge to build a customer experience team rooted in emotion and the opportunity that was revealed to us in that work, but also the devised solution that Domo and RXA helped us build because it is exceptional. The successful results, and we'll go under the hood and we'll show you how we do it. And Patrick, you're gonna take that on. So as we go through this, a little bit about our marching orders. We were told again to create emotional connections like the sporting events do for fans, and just like the sports radio or the studio shows do for audiences of our fans. So for example, you see here, you see Stephen A, for example, in the audience, and ultimately, in addition to Stephen A, who do we have there? Max Kellerman. So Stephen A and Max is no longer with ESPN, but when this started, you found them more in the audience, and suddenly you were seeing a shift in what we do. We're trying to be more with the fans in the stands and the suits in the suites. And being able to show that we're doing that now on TV, we need to then understand that when we speak with them, it is exactly the same dialogue. So how do we speak to the suits and the suites and have a great conversation with them versus the fans in the stands? They're very different. And we need to learn and determine how, in fact, we can make those conversations. And our leadership expected us to know the fan, to protect the brand, grow the customer base, and improve product and process. Interestingly enough, customers want the same thing. They want you to know them, protect them, be honest with them and transparent. They want to be helped when necessary, and they want to feel valued. And ultimately, it comes down to one word: reciprocity. If they're investing in us in any way, whether it's $10.99 a month for ESPN Plus, or it's $90 for a UFC pay-per-view, we need to give them more. We need to have reciprocity and show if there are issues, we will take care of it. And we're going to give you a +1 with any opportunity we can. And we're going to say, we can relate to the issue you are having. We have been there, experienced it, and seen it before. And that's something that we feel is the next level that we need to get to that we really weren't at. So with that, as we go into here, show of hands, who here has heard of the watermelon effect? All right, so the watermelon effect, not too many, is where on the outside we're seeing, and we're going to use a sports analogy from the lovely show Shoresy on Hulu, which is a tremendous show if you haven't seen it. But with that, imagine if you owned a third-tier, somewhat semi-pro hockey team, and your sales team said, you know what? You asked, hey, how are things going this season? Sales team said, attendance is great. The team's winning. Sponsorship's looking amazing, and revenue's up. But if you asked a few more questions, you also learned several players, though, kind of unhappy. Some are looking to leave. And in fact, those fans, they're no longer seeing those angry players after games to greet them. And their jerseys now, their sales are starting to stagnate. Penalty minutes are up, and 2 fights have broken out in the locker room. And what this shows is, on the surface, everything looks great. And in customer service, we looked great. Our agents were brief, bright, and gone. Our service levels were immaculate. We know exactly how to stand up how many live agents for any number of sporting events. The sporting calendar rarely ever changes. However, it's not enough. There was more we needed to do. So ultimately, we had CSATs, customer satisfaction surveys. They were good, but they didn't really reveal anything. And the ones that did, these were, again, hundreds to thousands we had to get every day if it was a UFC fight, or every week if it weren't. That's too much for any human beings to deal with. So ultimately, we needed to come up with a solution to understand what we were facing when the fan reached out to us, and what did they feel with regards to the experience they had. Our CSAT is very, very high in terms of responses. Why? Because with every customer satisfaction survey we give, we also offer a +1. So the engagement is strong. If the engagement weren't, this would be a whole different story. But with strong engagement, we're able to get so much more information from the customer, the fan, because we incentivize them to do that. So with this, let's just go on to the next one. We wanted to identify opportunities where we could really feel like what mattered to the fan mattered to us. Let's look at this point here. When the fan said he was much more concerned about me as a person and what I was going through, this is one sentence and directly from the mouth of one of our contacts. And in this response, the fan's saying, you know me, ESPN, you understand me and what I've been going through. You have my back, and that I appreciate it and I appreciate you. This is what we wanted to capture and bottle. It's this sentiment, it's the essence of a fan experience with our customer service that's not just good, but it's great. And so this is the magic elixir that we needed to capture. And I'll also note conversely, in the interactions that were just downright awful, we needed to capture those as well and address those immediately. So in this project, we identified really 3 things as our opportunity. 1, we needed to analyze fan conversations to replicate their success. And this entailed real-time keyword retrieval to enhance analysis of customer reviews at scale of hundreds to thousands each day. 2, we needed this analysis to uncover conversational insights to improve customer engagement, using large language models to extract meaningful patterns and sentiments. With this, we could create logical and repeatable conversational models for care specialists to use with our fans in similar situations across every situation. And then 3, we could compare this to what we were doing before and the results based on what we found of what we were doing with this model, and find the success with regards to improved revenue, image, productivity, efficiency, safety, security, and stability. And that was really the magic that we needed to do. So with that, if you think about it, it applies to all customer service. And again, I'm a customer service practitioner. I don't know SQL, Python, R, Shiny, any of that. And it's not my job to do that. However, I also have a team. We're not terribly huge. And although our name is ESPN, and yes, we're owned by Disney, and it's a corporate behemoth, we're pretty small. So I look to partners like RXA OneMagnify and Domo to force multiply. We didn't have the wherewithal to be able to create these models with catharsis scoring, something we're going to talk about, to get to the answers that we needed to identify these were the best conversations, not just good, the best we've seen in the reviews. Then we go through the back and forth, the full conversation with these fans, and we allow agents to pirate and modify those to make them their own, keep it authentic, and then repeat that. Because when these agents come out of training, they're new. And after 2 weeks of, let's say, fantasy sports certification, which is incredibly expensive and incredibly difficult, if we have you, we wish to keep you. And this customer service applies to wherever you might be working in customer service. If you've trained an agent, they're expensive. How do you keep them? And one further, also the AI. So we have chatbots. We call our chatbot Bot Van Pelt, like Scott Van Pelt, and kind of looks like Scott Van Pelt, our talent. Bot Van Pelt right now, not the smartest bot, right? we're on the precipice of generative. We need to make sure that our bots are authentic and have similar conversations with fans, just like our live agents do. That means our agents will become super specialists, and our AI, the bots, will handle the low-hanging fruit, but still sound organic and authentic. And that is what we've been trying to do with this work. Let's go a little bit deeper. Jenn?
Yes.
There we go.
Thank you, Doug. So CSAT has been ESPN's resource to learn about our fans in a more meaningful way. When companies consider CSAT, customer satisfaction, it's easy to call it a day and use Net Promoter Score, NPS, and just have your customers rate you from 1 to 5. Sad face for 1, happy face for 5. 1 to 5, like it's some sort of like advanced placement exam score, which always makes me think of that. If that's all we did at ESPN, we would never be able to build a relationship with our fans. Not the ones where we made them feel like we were more concerned with them as a person, as the last slide indicated. So by gathering both care agent and product feedback in the example of a CSAT survey on the left-hand side, we are transcending our customer satisfaction model. And it goes beyond just a number, because now we have the words, the feedback from our fans. And within the human condition, with words, come emotions, sentiment, and with the tools of RXA OneMagnify and Domo, we've been able to place our customer satisfaction data in their hands and allow them to further analyze our customer satisfaction feedback in a way that is now multidimensional. It is now emotional and from functional perspectives. If we looked at the feedback one-dimensionally, sure, could our care agent feedback support us with increasing morale, quality training, educational purposes? Yes. On the surface, product feedback, we could share that with marketing, product and engineering, but we're going deeper than that. So by capturing this data, RXA OneMagnify and Domo are capturing emotional momentum. So you're going to hear the word emotional a lot because we are making a connection with the words of our fans. So that is the common denominator here. Whether it's me at T-Mobile Arena or whether it's a fan who finally gets connected to ESPN content on the streaming device of his or her desire, the common denominator is that we all experienced a moment of amusement, of surprise and joy, and we get to capture that. I want to introduce catharsis scoring. This is a metric that will aggregate the differentials, the deltas of a range of either positive or negative emotions. Patrick will divulge and share how that is calculated and how it's measured. And this model has helped us capture those positive moments, the ones where we get to identify those positive experiences that our fans have shared with us. All right. More about the catharsis scoring. Catharsis scoring helped us identify a very particular emotional connection. And we get, as Doug mentioned, tens of thousands of fan feedback on a monthly basis. And as a part of the Walt Disney Company, we'd be remiss if we didn't do more than just entertain with sports content. We are also storytellers. And ESPN tells the story behind the sports. But there is another story beneath that. And it's the one that happens between the fan and the company, the fan and the brand, and the fan and the care agent. And so when all a fan wants to do is engage with ESPN, whether it's watching sports, playing fantasy, listening to a podcast, all they want to do is engage with us. And we're here to capture those moments, tell the stories about the fans who bonded with our brand in an unexpected way. Because nobody's going to tell a story or share a story when they expected a particular outcome. The most truly compelling ones are the ones where the fan had a moment that they least expected, that they were moved in some way, delighted and surprised by an experience and interaction with us. So I want to share a story that a fan contacted us. This was over the Christmas holiday, reached out to ESPN Fan Support. After his house had burnt down, he and his family ended up displaced over the holidays, and reached out to us and wanted to watch some ESPN. Who would have thought that that was his spot while he's trying to, figure this out with his family under these circumstances, under these dire, unexpected circumstances. And our care agent, Andrew, handled this phone conversation, though handled really does seem like an understatement. And I want to go through the words from the fan himself, because it's quite a compelling story. So, from the words of the fan, I became fragile and filled with anxiety from the displacement. Hearing his voice, the care agent's voice, I began to break down, but he assured me everything would work and everything would be okay. He was much more concerned with me as a person. Easily corrected my accessibility to ESPN, assured me that everything would be okay. He listened to me cry this morning. The level of human kindness willingly given by Andrew, far above anything I've ever experienced from a company-customer interaction. I'm truly grateful for his support. Many things were different for our family this Christmas, but I will forever remember Andrew. So, when Doug and I found this interaction through the catharsis scoring, we couldn't believe it. We couldn't have made this up.
Without catharsis scoring, I might add, it could have taken a month for us to even find this. So the scoring found it immediately. It allowed us to act on it. So for example, the video you saw in the beginning was us thanking one of our fans with a quick video that we made. Yeah, we're blessed at ESPN with the tool sets to be able to make quick videos like that. And that's a blessing, but to be able to offer, gratitude and thanks and congratulations to such an agent, anyone can do in customer service. To be able to do it in the moment, it matters, and then to pirate and modify everything about that back and forth to determine how other agents could emulate, mimic's not the right word, but emulate and make it their own is important, because when other individuals are in a fraught situation trying to find a live event, because sports moves at the speed of live, which means if you are missing something, you are filled with rage because you can't access it. That's our job to then say, we got you, we will make it right. And we want our fans to understand when we use terms like, I appreciate that when they give us information, and I appreciate you, they mean two different things. They need to know when to say those. You don't just say it across the board. We're learning when to use certain statements to get a better result.
Thank you for that addition, Doug. So yes, through RXA OneMagnify, through Domo, we were able to capture this moment. And it's an extraordinary moment, and we were able to give this fan a glimmer of hope, something so unexpected during this time, and a moment that this fan will never forget, and he'll always have this connection to the ESPN brand. All right, let's get into more detail about catharsis scoring. Like we mentioned, we identified it. We identified the previous interaction through catharsis scoring, and out of tens of thousands of fan responses, what we just talked about might have been missed by a human, that human being me. But let's consider how and where catharsis scoring lives in our CSAT model. So our feedback cycle, it serves two objectives. Our first objective is to reward and recognize top-performing care agents. Secondly, we want to identify areas of opportunity where we can refine our products and services. And in our world, when Doug and I are able to do both, this is added value and added utility for our fans. The first few steps of this process, of both life cycles, include receiving and resolving the fan inquiry. So ESPN fan support, the ESPN motto is to serve fans anytime, anywhere. So you can reach us by texting us, emailing, calling us, live chatting with us, social media, our chatbots. We make ourselves accessible and reachable to our fans on their terms. So upon resolving the inquiry at hand, we send out a CSAT survey. Our CRM is Zendesk, and that is where our CSAT data also gets received. And when we ingest this data into Domo, we're able to identify where the catharsis scoring is high for certain interactions. And so Patrick at RXA OneMagnify will divulge further into how that works. So, we get the temperature of how the fan is feeling through emojis, but like I mentioned, we really truly get the full panel by the words of our fans. We get their emotions, and we get to analyze the sentiment of each sentence of their feedback. So we have the opportunity to recognize moments where we can reward our agents for their excellent above and beyond service, and also identify areas of opportunity for product improvement. So this is always a fun part. Our success with rewarding our care agents, it truly and fundamentally derives from our culture of humanity first. I've coined this phrase, but I like to call it's trickle-down recognition. And it's that if Doug and I have a program where we put our care agents first, they will in turn put our fans first. And as part of the Walt Disney Company, we're all about creating those happy and magical moments. And it's no longer just for our customers, no longer just for our fans. It's now for our care agents. So when we bring those sports moments to our agents, they become the fans in the stands as well. So our care center is headquartered in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. It's right across the Detroit River, and you can bet that our agents were delighted that the Detroit Lions had the season that they had, and that we were able to bring them to sports events and recognize them for their excellent performance, and reward them in a way that makes them feel bonded to the brand, to the sport, and make them fans as well. That helps them know the fan, value the fan, protect the fan, because now they're fans too. So we notice that our culture perpetuates, it sustains, and maintains a culture that we've been able to lower our agent churn, increase our CSAT numbers. And this has remained true even in our toughest of times. And at ESPN, especially during COVID, we've gone through those tough times. And these type of gestures that we have with our agents, it definitely helps them with building upon the love of that brand, of our brand. So while the feedback that we get from our fans helps us reward and recognize those agents, let's talk more about how it helps us refine the product. So product feedback allows us to examine what works for our fans and what isn't working for our fans. So just to reference the title of our presentation, if we say we want a fan-centric revolution, it really does begin with identifying what matters most to our fans. And it's not just about whether our product and engineering teams can fit something on the next sprint, where it's going to be on their roadmap. It's not truly just on them. And when our fans take the time and the effort to share their suggestions, share their grievances with us, the onus is on Doug and it's on me to leverage that data, lean into RXA OneMagnify and Domo, validate our fans, and give them what they want. And CSAT feedback on our products has led us to awareness and action by our product teams and by our leadership. We don't just recommend suggestions to our leadership, we can now show them the data that makes them feel, makes them motivated to take action. And we have some examples in which we've been able to deploy this. First example would be Gamecast. This Gamecast is the ability for fans to have that real-time, play-by-play visual. And this is especially useful for fans who want to keep up with a sporting event that ESPN may not particularly have the rights to. We saw this with LG TV, with LG Smart TVs, where there was a gap between the ESPN app compatibility with LG Smart TVs. And because we were able to get that care data to motivate our product and engineering teams to get on it. Because when you get the LG Smart TV for Christmas, you want to watch your sports. Other examples is our support token. Now, every text message conversation fans have with our care agent carries a support token. What does that do? That has allowed our engineers to follow the user journey through New Relic and better understand where certain bugs are, or how we can troubleshoot better in the future. And lastly, with ESPN Bet, which launched several months ago, our fans voiced that they wanted a choice to either enable or disable sports betting content, ESPN Bet content within the ESPN app. So this is just part of a myriad of examples of how we've used care data, data that fans have taken the time to share with us. And the information that they share with us does not stop with me and Doug. It is obviously shared with our internal stakeholders. And last thing I do want to note is that when it comes to this data and how we use it, nothing says we hear our fans, we know them now, we value them, like showing them that we've been able to take what they say and do something about it. And Doug and I are very grateful to have RXA OneMagnify and Domo to show us what has been working for us and what we can do better.
I'll add one last thing if I can. Again, practitioners of customer service. It is so much easier to compel an executive, not just with numbers, but with the actual horrific, most likely they're very bad, words from the fan about their product experience and the joyous resolution that Care was able to make, because a good story, well told, in addition to metrics, makes a whole lot of difference for their decision, because they can more easily put themselves in the customer's shoes. It's all about emotional storytelling. That was the gap we didn't have, that we were struggling to fill. Let's show how we do it.
Yeah. All right, you guys ready? Yeah? All right, we're gonna do a little demo here. I'll wait for them to switch it over here. I'll talk a little bit about just the name catharsis score. Like, why did we go about calling it that? And the definition here, technically, catharsis, or one definition, is a powerful emotional release that, when successful, is accompanied by cognitive insight and positive change. And what that means, really, is it involves both this emotional component, which we've been talking about, as well as a cognitive component in which the individual gains new insight. And so the scoring method that we came up with is intended to capture that emotional change throughout the conversation as it evolves and turns positive. And so I'm going to walk through the process that we went through in how we got this and arrived at this scoring. So we started with 28 emotions. We identified 9, and group 9 as positive, and 6 as negative. For those of you who might be interested, we're using an open source BERT architecture transformer model. The specific model is Roberta, and it's trained on Go Emotions. Go Emotions data set is a data set that's a 58,000 sample Reddit review, and each of them are labeled with these 28 emotions. So it's all manually done, and so that was our kind of training basis. And so on first pass, when we did this, we're scoring from 0 to 1, and you can see some of the results here. They're all 5 stars, but Crystal was so very great. She was knowledgeable and kind and patient, solved our problem. That's wonderful, but doesn't really capture the texture of the reviews, the types of reviews that they were looking for. So again, scored really high in the admiration category or emotion. Took care of my needs and made everything simple and easy. Again, very caring, high scoring, but again, not really that context there that they can do something with as far as training their agents. And then lastly, he was absolutely amazing in understanding. So those were all scored really high, but weren't really rich in context. So let's take our example of the family with the fire, and you look at some of their scores. So caring, 0.23. So again, on a scale of 0 to 1, 0.23 here. I think it's nervousness, 0.24. So really didn't capture that. The scoring we initially didn't capture the range that we were looking for. And a lot of that's because when we scored the entire review, the emotions kind of get diluted. And so we kind of lost some of that emotional depth. And so we reviewed that and said, okay, well, let's go back and evaluate this on a sentence by sentence basis. And so we took our model, adjusted it, and broke everything up into sentences and scored it again from 0 to 1. And this time you can see our score for this particular review with the family, with the fire, scored anywhere from 0.2 on emotions to over 0.9, almost 1. And so as you go through these sentences, our family has been displaced by a house fire, right? This is high in nervousness. It was exhausting, right? I was becoming fragile and filled with anxiety, so really high on nervousness. And now we start to see the change, the shift of this fan, right, and their interaction with the agent. So he assured me that he would make everything work and not to worry. And then if we look at the last 3 sentences here, right, Andrew was unbelievably positive and supportive for my life situation. He was much more concerned about me as a person and what I was going through. So again, being able to capture these scores and record them, we can now look at these scores and aggregate them in different ways. And so we did that, and we came up with what we called our max delta. And so by capturing the largest change of emotion between sequential sentences, we start to get a sense of the change of emotion of the overall interaction. And so we stored this max delta and then aggregated. This is just some examples of some of the deltas, and I narrowed it down. I didn't include all the emotions. So this is, the peak of desire. This particular sentence has the largest in surprise. So again, admiration and approval, sentence 8, and then that sentence 9 that we looked at earlier was the largest in caring. And so we now take these, aggregate them. We could do that across all emotions or just a subset of emotions. And we're doing all of this in Jupyter workbooks. This is a Python script that's running in Domo. And so we pull the data in, we run it through our Python process, and what we're doing during this process is really evaluating these reviews. And so the reviews that are consistently one emotion don't really score that high. We are able to amplify those narratives or stories for reviews that do have that emotional variety and fluctuation. They tend to score really high. By default, the shorter reviews or strings, because they don't have any meaningful split in emotion, they're omitted. And so then we use these in combination with other methods to zero in on the stories that we want. And if anybody's interested, by the way, in going deeper into the particular script, I would welcome you to come by the RXA OneMagnify partnered booth, and I'd be happy to go through this in a little more detail. We also have some people who are a little more versed in Python probably than I am. But the result is what we wanted. This is what we were looking for. So again, our family with the fire, trying to get their TV to work just to get a little relief from their situation, right? Amazing. Here we have another one, again, all 5 stars, by some measures, very successful, but the context of this particular review, not that compelling, and doesn't provide Doug and Jenn with really what they need. So the guy I spoke with has been the only one that has helped me fix my issue. And then he goes on to kind of complain about the other agents and how they hung up and disconnected. And then you can see this bottom one, again, no range, so it doesn't even score at all. Fix the problem, much appreciated. And we see a lot of them kind of in that range. And so how does this look in practice? Well, we built a dashboard for them, and there's all the metrics that you would imagine. There's the scoring, CSAT, stars. You can see the reviews, you can filter. So, what most of you would consider, a normal kind of dashboard. But this is really, in my mind, the kicker. So in this particular sample, we have about 8,000, but I think now we have over 15,000 reviews. And John and Jenn have to go parse through those reviews one by one, and even if you narrow them down to 5 stars, there's still thousands, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, coming in a day. And so in order to make that really manageable, it just wasn't. And so here, they're able to click on the amazing button, and thousands of reviews immediately goes down to 69, and you drill in, and sure enough, the one at the top is our family with the fire, and with Andrew, who was so successful in helping them through that situation. But we have others, and this is one of my favorites. If I were an agent for the CIA or MI6, I would want Brandon as my guy in the intel van, dishing out the important intel to me through my earpiece. I trust him that much just from our one interaction. So again, how do you can't make that stuff up, right? This guy was so impressed by his one interaction with Brandon, that he felt compelled not only to leave a review and a rating, but to write something like this, to really get his point across. And this is something then that Doug and Jenn and their team can take and pirate and modify for other agents to say, if you have an interaction with this product, these are the types of things you can say. These are the paths that you can use to get a successful outcome. Well, we didn't stop there. And we're not super creative with names, so we have amazing and stinkers. And so the stinkers are, as you would imagine, the ones that maybe didn't turn out so good. And so this top one, again, interesting in that it is a successful outcome. The fan got what they wanted by some measures, right? It was a quick interaction, successful outcome, green on the outside, but when you dig in, it's a watermelon, so it's red, right? The service rep, rather than just directly tell me the answer to the question I need to answer, talk down to me like I was a child. I didn't appreciate being spoken to in a condescending manner when all he needed to do was remind me that my subscription was through Amazon. It's not a big deal to just be normal. So again, clearly the fan felt an emotional response, but in this case, not a good one, not the one that they're looking for. And probably with a little bit of coaching, a different approach, this could have been a 5-star amazing rating. All right, well, again, I want to thank Doug and Jenn for giving us and trusting us, honestly, to do this work. They came to us actually in November. Doug came up with this idea, and he said, it would be great if we could just do this at Domopalooza. And we didn't even have data until, I think, December. So we said, sure, why not? We can get it done. And so I'm really proud of our team of data scientists. I'm proud of our solutions engineers and leadership. And I also want to thank Domo. We did all this. Presentation is in App Studio, which just released this week, which is fantastic. And a reminder that all of this is being done in Domo in Jupyter Notebooks. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Doug and Jenn.
We know we're at time, so we want to say, first of all, thank you so much. Again, we're here to talk about, under the hood and just what we're doing with this. We'll be outside, and we're happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you so very much. We appreciate it.